The reason why that billboard was so impactful on my business is because of authority building. Because once you are the type of person that is on a billboard, there's no turning back from that. People see you differently. There are people in my network, in my community, that remind me that I've been on a billboard. And that is what makes me appear as the authority, credible, an industry leader in their eyes. If you've ever looked at creators like Alex Hormozi or Cody Sanchez and thought, how on earth do they create so much content so consistently? The answer is actually pretty simple. They have teams. And that's the thing most people don't realize about visibility. At a certain level, it stops being about talent and starts being about infrastructure. Because the truth is, you don't need more ideas. You need more capacity. And that's exactly why I'm so excited to tell you about Workplay. For only $497 a month, Workplay gives you access to a global network of creators who essentially become your on-demand media team. Every quarter, you get a 7-hour brand shoot, photo or video, anywhere in the world. But what I love is that it's not just someone showing up with a camera. They help you think strategically about the content. They plan the shoot, they create the assets, and they help you actually get the content out into the world. Because let's be honest, most founders don't need to build an in-house media department. They just need access to one. And that's exactly what Workplay was designed to do. Visit the show notes to learn more about Workplay and what it could look like to finally have a media team behind your vision. What's up, you guys? Welcome back to Fame Ready, the podcast to show you that anything is possible. Yes, including fame. And in the case of this week, including billboards. I am recording this a day after I got back from Toronto for a pretty incredible experience, might I add. So what I wanted to do today was deep dive into a quick little recap of my experience in Toronto. You know, I get a lot of comments that people like when I talk about the lifestyle components, and I share a little bit more about the personal behind the scenes of my travels. Spoiler alert, actually, by the time this episode comes out, I am hoping that we are rolling with a new addition to our content bank on YouTube, which are vlogs. I have been trying to vlog for, I don't know, 3 or 4 months now, and I find it really, really challenging. But thanks to my team putting a little bit of pressure on me, thanks to me actually watching a shit ton of YouTube videos on the subject, getting comfortable with the idea, we're going to start sharing more vlogs over on my YouTube channel as well as this podcast. So there is no shortage of amazing content for you over there. But if I've learned anything from the vlog creation process, it's that my community, my audience, if you want to call yourselves that, you guys love when I give you a behind the scenes of my travels. So let me do a little bit of a recap on that, what the trip actually looked like, some of the ins and outs and special things that happened. And then I want to talk about the most amazing thing that happened on that trip and why it's so important to each and every one of you that are listening and how you can implement some of the strategy into your own brand. So this really feels like a true Katrina Owens special where I do the personal storytelling with the strategy. So let us dive into it. Okay. So yes, earlier this week, I went to Toronto. For those of you that are newer to the podcast or maybe don't know me as well, I live in the Vancouver area, but I actually grew up in Ontario. So my family still lives, I want to say it's about an hour and a half outside of Toronto. And I do try to visit a couple times a year, although I did not see my family on this trip. Whenever I have something in Toronto, I find it really hard to leave the city. I just love being there. And actually, I said this to a couple of my friends while I was on this trip. I was like, something about the energy in Toronto really makes me feel like I'm about to be a future indie rock icon. And I don't know what it is about the energy there, but it's anytime I'm there, I'm like, yes, this is all happening for me. Maybe it's because back in university, I had the amazing experience of volunteering at the Canadian Music Awards and got to spend a lot of time in the city, seeing the behind the scenes stuff on that, which was really, really cool. That was back in my PR journey, like when I was really determined. I hadn't even graduated university yet, but I was so determined to like be a PR queen. And I guess I eventually became one. So yeah, something about the air in Toronto. So whenever I have like an event or things to go to, I try like not to leave the city. I just like let myself soak it all in. And boy, did I ever on this trip. Okay. So I had the absolute luxury of staying at the Ritz-Carlton, which I've never stayed at a Ritz-Carlton before. And before we get all like, oh my gosh, the luxury travel, she's becoming so unrelatable. My experience at the Ritz-Carlton was actually the most relatable experience you think you'd ever have. So I don't know why, but when I booked this trip and was going to like book all my flights and accommodations, the hotels in Toronto were so freaking expensive. So I'm looking at these hotels and they're all like $700-800 a night. And I'm like, damn, I'm just going like to really have a good time. Like, it's not like I was going for like, I mean, the fabulous women I was supporting are clients of mine, but not in a way where it was like a necessary expense. So this was like, I was calling it a workcation, like a work vacation, because I had full intents of like working on this trip. It wasn't really like vacation at all, but I wasn't doing like work in the traditional sense. Actually blocked my calendar for like client calls and all of that. The only calls I did were a group call inside the Fame Ready Entrepreneur Program, as well as calls within my mentorship program, and like the book club call and a call I had with one of my event sponsors. So I really kept the calendar like light because I wanted to be able to enjoy myself, and enjoy myself I did. So I stayed at the Ritz-Carlton because as I'm like looking at all of these expensive hotels, I'm like, damn, if I'm going to spend that much money on a hotel room, a very like B-list hotel, let me see what it costs to stay at a hotel I would actually like love to spend that kind of money on. And as I'm in my like Marriott Bonvoy app, not sponsored, but like fingers crossed, that should come eventually, right? I am seeing that at the Ritz Carlton, there is a very extra special deal that says, stay 3 nights or more and save 30% off your stay. And so when I like booked that trip, I was actually saving money by staying at the Ritz. So we'd love to see it, right? And honestly, it was even more worth it because when I got to Toronto, so I took the red eye. Side note, I think red eyes are like the most efficient thing that you can do. I know people like either like love them or hate them. I am never really mad at a red eye, although I generally don't love myself after one. I just find that like, you don't waste any time. So if you travel through the night, and I think the other thing that I'll mention is red eyes are really, really common here on the West Coast when you're traveling to the East Coast, probably because of this reason, right? So took a red eye from Vancouver to Toronto, got to the Ritz Carlton at around like 8 a.m. And as I was checking in, the amazing man at the front desk says to me, we've upgraded you to a beautiful room on our 6th floor that has a terrace, like an outdoor seating space. And I was like, that just made this entire stay worth it, because now not only did I have a gorgeous room, I had this like beautiful seating area inside my room, and then this like private outdoor space where I could like sit and lounge, and like it was super private. So like people couldn't like really see me out there lounging. It was the best thing ever. So got that upgrade, got to have coffee with my great friend Christina Bartold just as I got in there, and then did a little bit of work, and then got ready for like this really epic day that we all had together. So I knew that Christina and Maria from High Vibe Women, but also the Social Snippet who edits this podcast. So shout out. This is like such a, I don't know, would we call this like a meta moment where like everything is connected? Um, I knew that these girls were booking this billboard in Dundas Square. Months ago, Christina told me that she wanted to get a billboard and was asking me like when I thought it would be an appropriate time for her to get a billboard. And I said, listen, you can get a billboard whenever you want to, but I would do it as a moment to like mark a very extra special milestone. Two things about billboards that I think people like either misunderstand or just don't want to come to terms with. So I was on my very first billboard last August, actually, coming up on my 1 year billboard anniversary. I was on a billboard in Times Square, and that was part of a paid PR placement with a magazine that was kind of offering a bundle. And it's become this like kind of controversial thing because people are like, you shouldn't pay to be on a billboard. But the thing is, you're always going to pay to be on a billboard. A billboard isn't earned media. A billboard is advertising. And so that's the most confusing thing to me because people are like, oh, like, you paid and coordinated for yourself to be on a billboard. And like, that means it's not authentic. And I have to tell you, in any case, okay, and I'll get there will be a caveat to this, but speaking to the entrepreneurs in the room, if you're an author, a speaker, a coach that's launching a program, an event host, you are always going to pay for that billboard. Even if you are a celebrity on a music tour, you are going to pay for that billboard. Even if you have a Broadway performance, you're going to pay for that billboard. The only way you're never going to pay for the billboard is if you're like hired as a model or spokesperson for like some brand who's buying the billboard. Billboard is not earned media. So let me get that out of the way real fast. Billboards are advertising. So Christina had this amazing idea to get this billboard to celebrate High Vibe Women. And I was like, that's great, but like make it a moment. Okay. If we're going to invest in a billboard, like you've got to make it mean something to your community. Like, you want people to celebrate that moment. And most of all, you want to be able to get an ROI from that moment because, say it with me, billboards are advertising. And it's really funny. So this is like the biggest misconception. I mean, I guess we've already talked about one misconception that was really big. So like maybe this is the second biggest misconception. So when I was on my billboard in Times Square last August, so a year ago, that billboard had an incredible impact on my business. I was actually selling tickets for the very first Big Brand Energy event that I had ever done, Big Brand Energy Sessions. And I had also just spoken on stage in New York City. And so when the opportunity came up to be on the billboard in Times Square, I was like, this is an incredible PR campaign because people are going to see me speak on stage in New York City. And then I'm going to share this content of me on this billboard in Times Square. And that is going to have a really, really amazing impact on my business. One of the biggest mistakes I see business owners make is spending all of their time working in the business instead of building the thing they're actually trying to become known for. Because every hour you're rebuilding a contract, chasing down an invoice, manually scheduling a call, or trying to figure out where a client is in your process is an hour you're not spending on visibility, relationships, content, speaking, opportunities, or growth. That's why I love Dubsado. Dubsado is the client management system I recommend for service-based business owners who want to create a more professional client experience without adding more work to their plate. It brings your proposals, contracts, invoices, scheduling, and automations into one place. So instead of constantly reinventing the wheel, you build the process once and let it work for you. And here's what I really appreciate. Your clients receive beautifully branded proposals, contracts, and invoices from the very first interaction. Because we all know that perception matters, and the way someone experiences your brand before they ever become a client impacts how they value the work that you do. More than 35,000 entrepreneurs run their businesses on Dubsado, including thousands of 6- and 7-figure business owners. You can start a free 21-day trial with no credit card required. Just head to Dubsado.com and use code Katrina Owens for 35% off your first year. You'll find the link waiting for you in the show notes. After I'd been on that billboard, I like sold a bunch of event tickets. I had like signed a new client in the Fame Ready Entrepreneur program. And I think a couple other things that happened too. I did not come prepared with my ROI from that experience a year ago, but I knew it was significant because I was so happy with my investment. But when I started to share, like, this billboard had this financial impact on my business, the first thing that people think of is they think it's because random people in Times Square saw the billboard and looked me up and like I made sales that way. That is, I mean, I don't want to say that is never going to happen, but that's like not what a billboard is for, you guys. Okay. So billboards in the traditional sense, like if I'm a big brand like AT&T, for example, and I have my billboards in Times Square because y'all know that they're always having their AT&T billboards with Selena Gomez or whoever it is as their spokesperson. AT&T isn't expecting that someone like looks up, sees that billboard and is like, "Oh my god, I must change my service provider to AT&T." No, people are seeing that and there's brand awareness and they're seeing the brand alignment. They're seeing Selena Gomez and it's just consistent brand awareness because I'm always butcher this statistic, but I think it's like we need 16 touch points these days before we actually make a sale. So the billboard is part of that. So for these big brands and these big organizations, the billboard is building brand awareness and those consistent touch points, like, when you say, god, that brand is everywhere. Billboards and exterior signage, or in the marketing world we call this quote unquote out of home marketing. And so that just means like that could be buses, that could be billboards, that could be any kind of like transit poster. Out of home is awareness and brand alignment too, if you're like showing that you have a pretty well-known spokesperson. As a side tangent, in one of my previous jobs, this was something that I actually did a lot of. Every year at Christmas time, we would do bus wraps. So I worked as marketing director at a shopping center, and we would do a holiday campaign every single year, photography wise. So we'd have all this gorgeous photography, and it would always like really stand out. Like one year, this was before like people really did this. We shot our entire holiday campaign on a pink backdrop. Okay. And this was years ago before it was super common for pink to be used in this way. And it was my job to identify which bus routes we wanted, what the bus wraps looked like. And it was never about someone like seeing the bus wrap and being like, oh my God, I must go to that shopping center right now. Like do a U-turn, drive to that shopping center. No. So I would buy these bus wraps specifically for brand awareness among certain routes, because the more that you see a certain brand, the more it becomes like ingrained in your memory, the more that you reference it subconsciously, all of that. And so that's one part of buying a billboard. But if you're an entrepreneur or a founder, or I'm guessing if you're listening to this podcast, you're a personal brand and you're like, yeah, but why would I buy a billboard? Listen up, because here's the most important part. That billboard is not for the people that are seeing it. Okay. So in the case of my billboard in Times Square, it did not matter that millions of people were in Times Square that day and saw me on that billboard. What mattered was the content that I got from it and how I used it on social media after the fact. And honestly, how I use it to this day for my brand. Because I mean, I'm still like in some of the interviews that I've done, I'll reference having been on a billboard. I write about it in my book. Like, the reason why that billboard was so impactful on my business is because of authority building. Because once you are the type of person that is on a billboard, there's no turning back from that. People see you differently. There are people in my network, in my community, that remind me that I've been on a billboard. And that is what makes me appear as the authority, credible, an industry leader in their eyes. And so that is the point of a billboard in most cases. But now let's talk about the third reason why you might invest in a billboard, because let me take it back to Toronto earlier this week. I knew that the gals at High Vibe Women were going to be getting this billboard. The thing that I didn't know is what they were putting on it. And in retrospect, I'm like, I'm like a pretty, like, that's like kind of a PR coach fail on my end that I didn't ask them what they were putting on it or if they needed any help in that way. But evidently they didn't, because they gathered me along with, I think there was like 20 other women who are big supporters of the brand, go to the events, are big parts of the community. And basically we received an email like a couple weeks ago saying, I guess maybe like it was a month before this experience, just saying like, hey, like we are celebrating all of the success of Hybrid Women on a billboard. We would absolutely love if you came along to have dinner with us to celebrate. And all 20 women with that invitation were like, absolutely, yes, we cannot wait to celebrate you guys at High Vibe Women, which is really powerful in itself, right? Like a group of 20 of us, literally, I came from across the country. A couple other women did too. There are women that, are moms and have busy businesses. And each and every one of us took time out of our schedule to celebrate these women that have built an incredible community that we're so happy to be a part of. And so earlier in that day, and I told Christina this because I want people to know that I'm switched on and like always paying attention to what's going on in the conversations. And so earlier that morning, I just checked in, just got my upgrade, got a delicious tiramisu cappuccino and an amazing chocolatine pastry at this cafe called Lano inside the Ritz. The guy at the front desk literally told me that I would have the best pastry of my life at this cafe, and he was absolutely right. And so I'm like enjoying my cute little breakfast. Christina comes down and she tells me how one of her friends who works in corporate saw the billboard from her office in the middle of Toronto and texted her to be like, oh my gosh, I just saw you on the billboard. Like, is this you? And then Christina proceeds to tell me the second part of what her corporate gal friend had texted. And she cuts herself off and says, never mind, I can't tell you that part because it's going to give away the surprise. And I was like, interesting. And so now my wheels are kind of turning. I'm like, why would you care if I know what's on the billboard? And so I started to think like, are we all going to be on the billboard? Something like that. And so we meet. So fast forward to all of us meeting in front of the restaurant where we're having dinner. I came a little bit early to see my good friend Carly Ottaway. Actually, you should head over to her podcast called The Favorite Self Podcast. There was a really incredible episode that the two of us did together that I think like we got a lot of positive feedback on it. People really liked it. So you should definitely give that episode a listen to learn more about Carly and I. We actually went to the same high school. She's a little bit older than me, so we didn't actually cross paths while we were there, but I do know her brother. And we're bonded by the fact that we like grew up in adjacent small towns. So we talk about that on her podcast episode, but I met up with Carly so we could like catch up and chat. We had Starbucks and then we met up with everyone for dinner. And before we walked over to the billboard, Christina and Maria were basically like, okay, you guys, we're going to walk over to the billboard, but like, this is a surprise. So like, keep your eyes covered, keep your head down. Do not look up until we tell you to. And I'm catching on at this point. I'm like, okay, there's something here. Okay. I wasn't born yesterday. And so we walk up to the billboard and we all have our eyes closed. And then when it's up, the girls are like, it's up. And we open our eyes. And these two incredible humans have put every single one of us who is attending this dinner on the billboard, pictures of each and every one of us that they scraped from the internet. And there are photos and video from like that surprise moment online. You can go over to my Instagram and see some of them. But like, I fair warning, get emotional talking about this part, but I just think that, you know, Christina and Maria had the opportunity to use this billboard for authority building, for awareness building, which they definitely did. But their priority in this was community building. And that is really, really powerful, because, we were all there to just celebrate them and their accomplishments. We were there to cheer them on, to, um, you know, see what's possible for ourselves through our friends having success. And they included each and every one of us in that. And, there's a lot of talk about community building out there on the internet, right? People claim to be community builders. I mean, people talk about building community, but this was the ultimate community building move. And I know, like, for me and each and every one of the women that had the opportunity to see themselves as part of this, like, that stays with you. It's just like such a special moment. And, at the end of the day, like, obviously, like, high vibe women still benefits from awareness and authority building through that. I mean, I know for a fact that they saw a few ticket sales and leads and other cool opportunities kind of roll in the 48 hours following the billboard. We like to call that billboard ROI. And so we know that that's part of it and that's so special, but um what an amazing feat to just include everybody in such an incredible experience. And I went on to make really, really amazing friends who I hadn't met yet in the high vibe community. Honestly, like, it turned out that a bunch of us are staying at the Ritz-Carlton. So, like, note to self, I guess that's where I stay in Toronto now. And each and every night that I was there, with the exception of the last one, we would like gather in one of our hotel rooms and just chat and connect. And it was the definition of girlhood. It really, really was. And I just feel so honored to have been a part of that experience. So, if you are someone who is wondering if a billboard is the right move for you, obviously they are an investment. They definitely are not cheap. But I talk about my billboard experience a lot. It also changes the way that you see yourself. Because once you see yourself on a billboard, it's like, wow, there's so much that I am like capable of doing. And, you now have the identity of being a business owner who makes big moves and is seen in a really, really big way. Because, like, being seen in the middle of a city like Toronto or New York City in Times Square, like, nothing really beats that, right? Like, you're now seeing yourself in this really big way. And when you share that content on social media, your audience also sees you in a big way. And so, just to round this all up, that's what we call famous people shit. Am I right? I'm right. And I'm so happy I got a whole bunch of high vibe women on the famous people shit train, which is always just so fun for me. So, if you are thinking about booking a billboard for your next venture, I just want you to make sure that you're linking it to a launch, whether it's an event, a book, a performance, a milestone. Make sure that it's not just you booking a billboard for the hell of it. If we're coming at it from like a public relations perspective, you want to build a campaign around it. And so by building a campaign, I just mean making sure that you know what the intention of it is. That's how you're going to make sure it actually generates a tangible financial ROI for your business. And if this is something that you actually need support with, the Fame Ready Entrepreneur Program is a great place for you to start. So I will share more information about the Fame Ready Entrepreneur Program in the show notes. I think it's been a while since we've done that, but we have seen a ton of new members join Fame Ready, which is the program that shows you that anything is possible. So the women inside book speaking engagements, podcast interviews, TED Talks, they write books. They are there to embrace the most famous feeling version of themselves. And they do this work alongside me. And so if you're someone who is thinking that a billboard is in your future, I would say the Fame Ready Entrepreneur Program is a great place to start that journey. So you will find that information in the show notes. And yeah, if you have any questions about the program or this podcast, please don't hesitate to reach out to me at Katrina Owens PR on Instagram. Please follow Fame Ready, which is the podcast, the programs, the community, everything that we create here to show you that anything is possible at Get Fame Ready on Instagram. Please rate and review this podcast everywhere that you listen. And I'll see y'all next week, okay? Toodles. What if the story you've lived is actually the strategy your business has been missing? This August, the Six-Figure Personal Brand officially launches to the public. Inside, you'll learn how to turn your expertise, experiences, and personal story into a business that creates more visibility, more opportunities, and more momentum, all without needing millions of followers or an expensive PR agency. Whether you're building a business, growing your credibility, or ready to become the go-to expert in your industry, this book will show you how to build a personal brand that gets you paid for being yourself. The waitlist is officially open, so don't wait until launch day. Head to katrinaowens.com/book and join the waitlist today.